tossers have thrown it out the door with their behaviour this week. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should absolutely look at themselves in the mirror and wonder what the have they been doing. They're hissing at us and calling us cheats in the Lord's long room, and they have the gall to say, talk to us about the spirit of cricket. Absolute bullshit.
There's a big appeal, it's hit him on the pad, he's out! Lions gone, New South Wales are 9 down! Onto Sydney Road, and it's hit a car! Oh, I think it's hit a car! What a way to bring up your 50!
All you want is to leave it all behind. Now there is a simple remedy to stay fit for all eternity.
Oh, hello everybody, and welcome back to Cricket Unfiltered. I am Menas, and we have a huge show ahead of us. The Ashes squad has been revealed, a massive disappointment to discuss in the Big Bash, and we also have to talk about Australia crashing out of the Women's World Cup. And joining me to dissect all of this big news, I can think of no one better. He's been benched the last couple of weeks, but welcome back, Damian. How are you?
It's good to be back with you, Metas. It's starting to warm up now, isn't it? The Ashes are only, 16 days away now. WBBL's on the horizon too after the World Cup that you mentioned from a women's point of view. So there's a lot happening. The Shield continues to roll on, so you can feel it burning.
You absolutely can. So let's get straight into it. The Ashes squad was announced today, and here's the big news. Sean Abbott is in as a bowler. Brendan Doggett is in as a bowler. Josh Inglis is the spare batter. Did they go for Matt Renshaw? Did they go for Sam Constas? No, they went for Jake Weatherald, last summer's leading run scorer in the Sheffield Shield. He started this season well with 3 half-centuries, including a 90, and they've included him over those two. Usman Khawaja, who went on last week and said he wants Matt Renshaw picked, he'll be disappointed. So it's going to be an awkward little conversation when Weatherald and Khawaja go out on the first morning of the Ashes test, because Khawaja said Renshaw's the only player that looks like a test player. So, yeah, tough stuff. But, Damian, so firstly, with that, what do you think about the Weatherald inclusion?
Well, I don't mind it. I suppose I'm probably a little bit biased, Metas, because I saw a lot of him very closely, not only last summer during the Shield, but also when he played for Australia A during the off-season as well. He looked strong. He looked primed. He's got a good technique about him as well. He's always up and about at the crease. I like his enthusiasm at the crease. He's got a very good technique about him in general. Just always on the attack as well, but not to a point where he plays too many silly shots either. So I actually don't necessarily mind it. He wasn't absolutely banging down the door in terms of runs, but he was certainly in the conversation. He was certainly playing reasonably well. So I don't necessarily mind the inclusion, but others might tend to disagree. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good inclusion. I'm happy to see him in the squad. And look, George Bailey made a few pointed remarks that makes me think they're leaning towards a top three of Khawaja, Weatherald, Labuschagne, with a bit of a battle between Green and Webster. So this could change, obviously, but Bailey said at the press conference that Green is due to bowl up to 15, 20 overs in the next Sheffield Shield match. And if he does that, he intimated that that would be enough preparation to see Green playing as an all-rounder in the first test. And my gut feeling is, from the body language and the answers Bailey gave, that they're probably leaning towards that, which will be harsh on Webster. But then I guess the mitigating factor here is, what if Green pulls up a bit sore after a day of bowling in the Shield game and he can't play as an all-rounder? Then what are they going to do? Are they going to revert back to Marnus opening, Weatherall doesn't debut, and they play Green and Webster? But, you know, when I'm sort of really trying to sleep at night, Damian, and think about this, and, you know, if I had to bet my house on it, if I'm a selector who has to bet my career on it, because, you know, if you lose a home Ashes, they likely could clean out house. Like, they could, you see it as an opportunity to move a lot of people on. So you face unemployment if you do your job badly. And hearing what Bailey and the co have said, Marnus, Smith and Head has been such a successful 3 to 5, then I think they might lean that way for the first test. But, who knows? And that would be really tough on Bo Webster. He would miss out and Green would play. But I guess you have to make tough calls sometimes when you're picking the Australian side. He's not the first player that's unlucky to be dropped. But I can just see the selectors moving in that direction. They talked about Weatherall's. Your email's going off there. Do you want to just...
No, it's I've had a few viruses on the computer, so hopefully that goes away. It's just going to come out of nowhere. Maybe it's you, Menace.
No, I hope not. But yeah, I would think, they did mention Weatherall's intent at the crease. So that's important. Like, I think they realize, which I think as well, that, Khawaja, Labuschagne, Green and Smith is not an aggressive top four. So, yeah, I think they're going to lean that way. What did you sort of read into Bailey's comments today?
Yeah, to a degree, I tend to agree with you. I do feel a bit for Bo Webster if that is the case, though, because he hasn't done much wrong, has he, Meadows? There's no doubt. Every time he's been out there, he's contributed in some way for Australia. So it's a hard one because you look at Cam Green, and I think a lot of it's still based on the potential of what he can bring, and you can understand that because you don't come across players like him in terms of talent and untapped talent very often. So. But as you said, a tough call probably does need to be made in that respect. It'll be interesting to see what happens from the bowling point of view. If Cummins is out for the series, the entire series, Meadows, it's interesting whether Sean Abbott plays that like-for-like role because we know he's capable with the bat. Brendan Doggett's going to be an interesting one. It's always interesting, and it can go either way, can't it? It's probably a 50-50 strike rate when you bring players in, whether it's with the bat or ball, from the Shield to the international squad for the first time or for the first time in a long time where they haven't had too much of an opportunity. Sometimes they can get found out. And other times they surprise everyone. And I think the biggest test is to maintain that consistency for a long period of time. So it's sort of exciting in a way, but there's always an element of risk to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, the squad is very, very much as expected. Abbott and Doggett have been the bowlers around the squad recently, so I wasn't surprised. I do get a bit of pushback from fans about Abbott. What's he done to be that next in line as a test bowler? And his first-class record really doesn't scream someone who should be playing test cricket, but he's also one of those players that's kind of a bit of a victim of their own success. He's played so much white ball cricket for Australia. In the last few years, his Shield playing time has been severely limited, which means he can't bash the door down like other players. So they do tend to reward longevity and pecking orders, and Abbott and Doggett fit into that. I guess there's been a lot of talk about Michael Neser maybe playing the second test with the pink ball at the Gabba, and he rested from a recent Shield game. So they could be thinking about his loads heading into that test match. I think we'll see Doggett play a test this summer. He's quick. He bowls very well. I'm a little bit worried about Abbott's trajectory against Bazball. I know he plays a lot of white ball cricket, but he does tend to bowl a few balls in the hitting zone, and I just think Bazball will target him. I'd love to see Sean Abbott play a test match. I'm not sure Bazball would be, or this England team would be the time to maybe give him a test cap. And then the other one is Josh Inglis. He's the middle order bat. No surprises there. He's been the spare batter for this team for the last little while. Obviously played in Sri Lanka, made 100. So overall, no real surprises. I guess there was that battle between Renshaw and Weatherall. And, we're left in a similar position to what we were last week, where it's just, are they going to play a specialist opener, which seems to me to be the favourite.
Yeah, that's right. And look, I'll give credit to George Bailey in the sense, in my view anyway, that he did throw down the mantra, didn't he, when it came to selection, that it would come down to first-class performances. And when you look at the last 12 months, Doggett and Weatherall have been pretty consistent, haven't they? So I guess it is that reward for Shield form, which Bailey did intimate would be the big part of the criteria.
Yeah, absolutely. And, those making the case for Renshaw, I don't think he's done enough yet to be really push. Like I think last summer he scored in the Shield. Paltry returns to average under 30. That's
Yeah.
kind of not good enough if you want to knock the door down. And I've said it a few times. I think he's in a good position when Kawaja retires to maybe slip in there, but he has to score a mountain of runs. So I think Renshaw's still got a bit of work to do.
They really rate him as a limited overs player, Menners, and he's shown that as well at the domestic level that he's probably, in terms of form, more suited to that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's up to him if he can score some Shield runs. I think he'll be there. All right, so the team was announced. They were the real takeaways from the George Bailey press conference. But I guess there was a bit of blowback Steve, I'll rewind. Steve Waugh did a press conference today at the SCG that I went to. Great fun. Great to be able to fire a few questions at Steve Waugh, my favourite cricketer growing up. So that was a real thrill. But he made some comments around George Bailey. So let me play the first one.
Well, George Bailey's have to make some tough calls. And I think in the past he's shown he hasn't really had the appetite for that at times. So he's going to have to step up to the plate to be the other selectors. Because it is a time of transition. The bowlers in their sort of 30s and some of the batsmen are getting on as well. But that's natural for every team. But sure, make sure that the 3 or 4 players don't go out at the same time. That leaves a big hole in the team. So they've got to, just make sure that it is transition, but not all at once. Yeah, well, I'd like to see the selectors pick the sides, not the players. There's been a lot of players recently picking sides and saying who should be in the team. That's the selectors' job. Well, George Bailey's have to make some tough calls.
So that was Steve Waugh speaking today at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Some really interesting comments there from him. Firstly, around the, all of them really, but firstly around the team being in transition, that you just want to make sure 3 or 4 don't go at once. And I guess that's the position we're in at the moment where, there are a lot of players coming to the end. I mean, if you look at the top 6, Kawaja and Smith, you never know when they could go. Obviously, Kawaja is going to be sooner than Smith, but Smith could go at the end of this summer. Then you've got all the fast bowlers. Stark's probably the first to go, but then you've also got Lyon, Hazelwood, Cummins probably the last to go. And then I sort of throw in Travis Head. I think there's a chance Travis Head at some point pulls up stumps and takes all the T20 money at offer. I mean, he's playing all 3 formats. At what point does he go, I'm just going to take the 10 million and play T20 cricket? So Steve Waugh's right. The selectors at some point have to make some tough calls, and you've got to be ruthless in your preparation and look ahead. And, do you think, say, we've got to move Kawaja on? He might still have some value, but we actually need to prevent too many players going at once. And I think they were pretty pointed comments. And then he obviously talked about the players not picking the side. I think there's 2 people in the gun there. David Warner, when he kind of announced his retirement and how long he'd play for. And I think Kawaja now both probably stick. Well, Kawaja's never said he deserves a spot. Kawaja's been very smart with what he said, but still, Kawaja said this week who would like to open the batting with, and that's definitely rubbed a few people up the wrong way. I think if you're Green, Webster, Constas, you would not be happy with Kawaja basically saying, I would drop you for my mate in Queensland. Like, that's not good for team harmony. So, very pointed comments by Steve Waugh. And George Bailey, in defense, said, look, that basically he did reiterate that the team does need generational change, and they're investing heavily in Australia A cricket. But his retort was, okay, so who do you drop? And I think you're obviously not going to drop Stark, Hazelwood, or Cummins in the form they're in, but could you have made a tougher call on Warner early? Could you have made a tougher call on Kawaja at the end of last year? Some people would say yes. What do you think, Damian?
Well, I think do you reckon that double century that Warner hit a few years back, did that probably buy him another year or 2 minutes? And we were under that sort of impression. And because there was no one really banging down the door for that anchoring type of role, real aggressive top order role, that they thought, well, we may as well persist with him. We know what he's capable of. In hindsight, probably they could have moved him on a little bit earlier, but maybe they were not fooled by his experience, but I guess they were enticed by what he has produced in the past. And we're all probably guilty of that. But it's interesting. I sort of applaud Steve Waugh, even if you don't agree with him, for at least speaking his mind like that. I wonder has he got a beef with George Bailey in the past? Because there were pointed comments towards him, weren't they? Sort of not only questioning his gumption to make the tough decisions and to do his job, but also questioning whether he had authority as well.
Yeah, they were pointed comments, and he really got on the front foot. And look, I think it's interesting because Steve Waugh is one of the few players from that era, that great era, that doesn't really work in TV or radio or in media a lot. So he rarely speaks, so we don't get to hear an insight. But let's not forget, he's one of the best things. Sorry, go on.
No, just to add a bit of a point there, something I just thought of. Steve Waugh made that comment that the selectors should pick the side. Was it at the 1999 West Indies series where he really drove the cause to drop Shane Warne ahead of the last test of that series, even though Alan Border, I think he was swayed, wasn't he, by Steve Waugh? So, I don't know, is there a little bit of contradiction there?
No, because that's totally different. On to the selectors pick the squad, and then on to captain coach usually pick the 11 with the selector. But yeah, look, Steve Waugh, one of the great thinkers of Australian cricket. He revolutionised the way Australian played cricket. He came up with new ways to approach the game. He didn't like a night watchman. He thought, why do teams ease off before breaks? Why, as a batter, do you shut up shop before stumps when the bowlers are tired and there might be easy runs on offer? All little things that he brought to Australian cricket. Handing out the baggy green, all these type of things. I mean, these are traditions started under Steve Waugh. Holding up the ball when bowlers took a fifer, that started under Steve Waugh's team. So when he speaks, he has real authority, and I think we should listen to him. And, they are pointed remarks that at some point you have to make the tough call. I've been saying for a long time, they should have made the tough call with Khawaja at the end of the Indian series. You can say he got boomeraged, but did he really? And then you have all of winter to find an opener to open in the Ashes, whereas now we might have a position if Khawaja stinks it up in the first two test matches where we've got two fresh openers with the Ashes on the line. So, yeah, I get Steve Waugh's remarks, and you're right, though. Very interesting that he called out Bailey by name. It wasn't a general remark. So, this has clearly rubbed him up the wrong way. And as one of the greatest Australian captains, we should listen to him, and Bailey should listen to him. Like, I understand Bailey's going to do a retort in the media, but I wonder if Bailey would reach out to Tugger and say, look, heard what you said. I'd love to talk about it with you.
Yeah, but I think at some point, do you have to have the strength of your convictions to say that you're in the role and not worry about what former players have to say? I see what you mean, because he brings a lot of experience, Steve.
I think if George Bailey can't call Steve Waugh and have a chat about it, something's wrong with Australian cricket. That's my opinion.
Do you reckon George Bailey's position is in severe trouble if Australia lose this series?
No, because as much as you can pick apart little things about the current Australian setup, it's been generally very successful. They won the 2023 World Cup. They were in the World Test Championship final. They won against India last summer. It went close, and I don't think the selectors done everything right, but they have got a pretty good strike rate. Like, it's hard to argue with their body of work as a whole. And definitely the two things you could say are, well, the main thing is the retirement issue is probably the thing that they haven't been good at handling. And Steve Waugh might argue, well, this is the thing that could really fuck the team up in 3 years. Like, okay, great, everything's rosy now, but in 3 years, we could be up shit creek like in the early 80s when we couldn't win a fucking test or test series, and everyone hates the Australian test side because it's so bad. So that's what Steve Waugh's maybe projecting forward. Like, everything's good now, but if you're not smart, then in a few years we're going to be fucked. But I will say, and we'll get to the news a bit later about this, but I am very positive about the future of Australian cricket. There is so much great talent coming through with the bat and with the ball, but especially with the bat. I think there's a lot of players ready to make the step up. So I'm not worried anymore. It's just when the selectors actually pull the trigger.
All right, there'll be a lull period just before we go to a break, though, even regardless of the talent coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always a lull period because no one not many players hit the ground running in Test cricket. No matter how good you are, you look at the Pontings, Steve Waugh today, in Constas, all these players, you take time to get going. So there could be a lull because if you have 4 or 5 new players in there, then it could take them a little while to get going. And that can snowball pretty quickly because you lose a couple of Test matches, then the pressure's on. So that's the danger. But overall, I'm very positive, which as listeners will know is not easy for me. All right, so let's take our first break for those listening on the podcast, and then we'll be back. I've got another clip of Steve Waugh and a lot of news. You are listening to the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. I'm Menners. I'm with Damian Watson. And yeah, I've got another clip here of when I asked Steve Waugh about the English team today. Steve, this English team talks a good game, but do you think they have the results to back it up?
I wonder whether someone was going to throw the bumper in. Yeah, look, they've got a quality squad. They've got match-winning bowlers. I think they've thought about how they're going to win in Australia, and that's through a couple of guys who can 150 plus in Archer and Wood, and they've got a really good backup quicks as well. Stokes, I think, is probably actually their best bowler. Their one weakness is spin bowling. But having said that, I think Joe Root's a lot better than people expect with the ball, and he's actually a quality off-spinner. So it's a pretty well-rounded attack, and I think they've thought about it long, hard. They know they've got to take 20 wickets to win Test matches here. They know they've got to be aggressive and positive. I think they've picked a squad with that in mind. Reality is, though, when you get to Australia, the crowds are pretty tough. They're in your face. England hasn't got a great record here over the last 20 years, so they'll be up against it.
Do you think they've changed Test cricket?
Oh, they've made it great to watch. I certainly enjoy watching them play Test cricket, as did most people, which is great for the game. I don't know whether they've changed Test cricket, but they've certainly made it very watchable.
Interesting comments there from Steve. I got to bowl him a bouncer there with the question. Look, I was just trying to stir some shit up with the Poms, basically. I got to be honest with you.
Well, he loves the Poms, Menners. Did that make you feel a little bit sick hearing Steve Waugh, your favourite cricketer of all time, really praise the Poms?
No, because he's not the first person I've heard say that. So, I mean, you can't argue with the fact that they play an entertaining brand of cricket, and it'll be even more entertaining for me this summer if they get beaten 5-0. I will say, yes, this is a very fucking entertaining brand of cricket. Keep playing it because we love beating you guys. All right, so there'll be a bit more Ashes talk coming up, but some other big news. So, a couple of weeks ago, you and I, we were so happy Ashwin was coming to the BBL, and he was coming for the whole time. But terrible news, he suffered a training injury, a meniscus injury in his knee, and he's now going to miss the whole Big Bash. That is so disappointing. He only signed a 1-year contract with the Thunder, so he may never come to the Big Bash. This is really disappointing. The Sydney Thunder put out a brave post yesterday saying he might do some off-field duties for them over the summer, but let's see how that goes. Damian, so disappointing. Our hopes were so high, and he's just irreplaceable. You just can't replace what he would have brought to the competition with anybody. So it is a body blow. I mean, these things happen, and I do think it reflects on the state of the BBL that one player would have brought so much. But what can you say?
Yeah, it is a bit of a shame, given his profile. I mean, you can't, with the current crop available that would go to the Big Bash, I don't think you get anyone bigger realistically, Menners. So it is a bit of a shame. When I saw the news come through, I immediately thought of you and how disappointed you would be. And I think a lot of people would. I think the Big Bash is still on a slight incline after it sort of plunged a little bit just before COVID and during COVID. So it is gaining a little bit of momentum, but it just prevented that real cannonball effect of momentum that I reckon you would have got. Because, as you know, Menners, as we've seen in recent times, the Indian crowds turn up here in Australia. And there will be more Indians that have turned up to the Australia v India one-dayers and T20s than actual Australian fans on our shores. So you just imagine what could have happened, particularly if Ashwin really performed well.
You're right. It's just imagine what could have happened now. And, you know, with the Big Bash looking to privatize, that would have been great to have him here and see what an Indian player could have done and shown potential people that want to get in on the Big Bash.
And shown the amount of interest as well. I mean, if the crowds had skyrocketed following Ashwin around, it probably would have been attractive to potential suitors, wouldn't it, from a privatisation point of view?
Yeah. I'll tell you who will be pretty happy. There's a few spinners at the Sydney Thunder who can just relax now. They'll probably play a lot more cricket because, you know, the Sydney Thunder have Chris Green, Tanvi Sangha, and Shadab Khan from Pakistan. So, there was already 3 spinners. Ashwin was the 4th. So it was going to be pretty tight to fit them all in the 11 because, okay, they play at NG Stadium on slow pitches, but they also go and play away games. You can't play 4 spinners everywhere you go. So, someone was going to have to miss out and probably wasn't going to be Ashwin. So I think quietly, Chris Green, Tanvir Sangha, and Shadab Khan will be thinking, okay, this just does guarantee us a lot more playing time for the upcoming summer. But ultimately, very disappointing. Wish him well. Hope he gets better, and I hope he can come out next season maybe. But yeah, very, very disappointing. When I saw that news, my heart did break a little.
I think the Big Bash accountants, they would have broken a little bit more, Mendes, just quietly.
Absolutely. All right. Speaking of heartbreaks, we haven't recorded since Australia crashed out of the Women's World Cup. They lost in the semi-finals to the eventual champions, India. Well, let's start with the semi-final loss before we talk about the significance of India's World Cup win. Australia met India in the semi-final, batted first, made 338 all out with 1 ball to spare. And it was signposted by a magnificent innings by Phoebe Litchfield, made 119 off 93. Elise Perry made a very good 77. Ash Gardner made 63 off 45 at the end. But apart from that, no real big contributions. Elisa Healy made 5. Annabelle Sutherland 3, Talia McGrath 12, Kim Garth 17. So they made 338 off the 49.5 overs. That's a big score. But when I was watching the innings, I watched all of Australia's innings, a bit of the chase, and then watched the rest of the chase the next day. I did think Australia left quite a few runs out there, and I thought there was some sloppy cricket from Australia. And Elisa Healy in the post-match comments when she talked about the result did point to that they weren't clinical. A few things that jumped out to me. Firstly, Phoebe Litchfield, as well as she played, she did have that Indian attack at her mercy. She kind of gave a wicket away. She does play a lot of laps and funky shots, but sometimes I don't think she needs to. Like she can play a bit more conventionally, and she got very funky, tried to hit one too fine and was bowled. And I thought that was a soft dismissal. Hard to criticize someone that's top scored with 100, but that's the innings. Go and do what a Laura Vulvart did 100, make 170. And then your team makes 370, 380, and there's no way India's getting that. Then through the middle order, really struggled to capitalize on the Perry Litchfield partnership. And then even at the end, like a little thing, with an over and a half to go, Gardner just smashed 2 sixes in a row, and then she gets run out. It was a terrible run out. Like I think she was batting with, I don't want to call out the wrong person, but I think she was batting with Kim Garth, and no need to run. It was a terrible run out, and that could have cost Australia the match right there, because the way Gardner was going, that 338 might have become 355 or 360. I mean, she had 2 sixes in a row. She might have hit 3 more in the last over. Like you just can't give your wickets away like that. Like it wasn't a good run out. It wasn't good fielding. It was just bad call, never a run in it. And you've got a form player run out. So they left runs out there, and then India chased it down. 5 for 341. Rodriguez 127 not out. Kaur made 89. They held the innings together. But I guess, and Australia dropped catches. Elisa Healy dropped Rodriguez when she was, I think, in the 70s or 80s. A real sitter, just popped up in the air and she dropped it. A couple of other drop catches as well from the Australians in that innings. And you have to adjust your mindset, because although it reads 338, the conditions were so good, it was more like 380. It was more like 280, 300. So it wasn't, it might have looked good on paper, but India, I wouldn't say they cruised home, but they did it pretty easy. And had Australia taken their catches, they probably would have won. But overall, it was a very sloppy performance. And I guess final point before I throw it over to Damian. I know this has been a monologue, but I've been thinking about this for days. Elisa Healy, right? People say on Menners, you're always crapping on about wicket keepers and fast bowlers being captain in a team. does Healy drop that catch off Rodriguez if she's not the captain? Like, she's got so much going on in her head. She's the captain, all the pressure. Who's going to bowl next field? She snatched at that catch. It was a terrible effort from the skipper. You know, what I think about fast bowlers and wicket keepers being captains is under the most intense pressure, that's when it's more likely to crack. And I don't know. No one will ever be able to answer. Does she take that catch if she's not captain? And she's a great captain. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying that's the problem with wicket keepers and fast bowlers being captains, because when put under the real heat, they're right in the thick of it on the field, whereas a batting captain can sit back a bit and be a bit more cool under pressure. Anyway, Damian, Australia out of the World Cup. What do you think of my assessment? Sloppy performance, but well played India.
No, I think it's all fair. We've got to give credit to India as well, who are starting to continue to rise. I wouldn't be surprised in a couple of years, Metters, if they are the number one team in the women's game, just with the amount of interest they have. They did rely on a couple of their more seasoned campaigners. Harmanpreet Kaur's been there for a while, as you mentioned, made 89. Jimmy Rodrigues has been there for a little while now. She's a bit younger, but some of their stars really did stand up, and that was a sensational century. Just a very elegant player, Jimmy Rodrigues, and has been for a while. And look, they deserve their victory. There's no doubt about that. Could be a great boon for the women's game in India, and even greater boon, Metters winning the World Cup. So I think it's a good thing for the game. But yeah, you're right. I think there were sloppy elements for Australia. Probably should have learnt their lesson from the T20 World Cup last year. It's interesting, isn't it, Metters? They had a bit of not a cruisy run, but they were going so well in the lead up to this semi-final, same as the T20 World Cup last year. I'm not suggesting they were complacent. They're a professional unit, but you do get prone, it's human nature sometimes, to lapses in concentration when you feel you're going well. And deceptively, as you said, they probably thought they were going well, even though, let's be honest, the wickets are roads over there by comparison to here. So, I just wonder if just that a couple of little lapses of concentration cost them.
Yeah, no, you're right. Absolutely, they did. I mean, it was a close game. Had Australia added another 20, 30 runs, they probably win. Had they taken a couple of catches, they probably win. You're right. And had they maybe lost the game, you never know. But, you know, it ends Australia's run. So they'd won the last 50-over World Cup. The game they lost was against India in the 2017 World Cup semi-finals, and that was the game England won the Lord's final against India. Very disappointing. This is a great Australian side. They will be hurting after looking so good, and in the end, they just got beaten. And I think momentum went India's way. They went on to win a brilliant final. India batted first against South Africa, made 7 for 298. And in reply, South Africa all out for 246. Shafali Verma was the player of the match in the final, making 87 off 78 and taking 2 for 36. Great story. She was recalled into the Indian side for the knockout part of the tournament and ended up being player of the match in the final. That's fairy tale stuff.
Yep.
Deepti Sharma was player of the series for her 22 wickets and 215 runs. And want to shout out Laura Vulva, who made a century in the final in a losing effort, but great effort from the skipper to make a century in the semi-final and final. And South Africa probably never really in the chase. They had a couple of moments when it looked like they might be able to get a partnership together, but India were relentless. They kept taking wickets at the right time and in the end winning by 52 runs. You know, and this is such a significant moment, I think, Damian, for India to win this World Cup. You know, lost the 50-over final before, lost the T20 final before, but for them to finally get over the line, to do it at home. And you know, this also does come on the back of, in 2023, that jarring loss where the men's team lost the final at home to Australia. You know, I don't think they'd have handled losing another home final too well, the Indian public. So, you know, so much pressure on this Indian women's team, and they delivered in a big way. I think it will add more into the women's game in India because everybody likes to be around winners. And so now they're the world champions for the next 4 years. I think that the progress had started with the WPL, the Women's Premier League. I think we were on that road anyway, but I think this will definitely supercharge it because now they've won and they've beaten Australia. They've beaten South Africa, and congratulations. I mean, they're a fine team. It's so good to see them doing well. When you think about where their standards were, you know, going back to that 2017 World Cup where they really started to improve. Now they're, you know, consistently there or thereabouts in every major tournament, and now they've got the final reward, which is they are the world champions.
Do you think it's a changing of the guard potentially?
Oh, I don't think so, because I think Australia has a lot of talent, but I think it's a changing of the guard in a sense that, like teams like India, you need to win one to feel like you can do it. And I think now that they've done that, who knows what can happen. All right, so Women's Cricket World Cup is over. Heartbreak for the Australian team, and India, well done. All right, so I just want to quickly wrap up the domestic season, just where we're at with the points tables. But just in the last week, we've had centuries for Steve Smith, Curtis Patterson, Marnus Labuschagne scored a one-day century. Nathan McSweeney scored a Shield century, his first one since being dropped from the Test side. Campbell Kellaway made another century opening the batting. Marcus Harris made a century in the middle order. Young Queensland player Jack Clayton made a century, and veteran Cameron Bancroft returned to the runs. And that's what I was saying. Prospects are good. I think Campbell Kellaway might be overtaking Constas as the next young opener they bring in. He's looking very compact as an opener. You've probably seen a lot of him for Victoria. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's definitely capable. I think he's the nephew of Duncan Kellaway, I reckon. The Kellaway brothers who played footy for Richmond in the AFL. But he looks very, very sturdy. He can be the aggressor as well. I think he's got that good duality to his game where he's not probably as attacking or as flamboyant as Constas is, but he is capable of still being a pretty attacking and aggressive style of player. And he's got plenty of scope for improvement. He's a good athletic young lad as well, very, very broad-shouldered, tall, etc. So I think he's got some good capabilities, absolutely. I've been bullish about him for the last couple of years. He just needs to get that consistency together. We've seen what he's capable of. If he can get a string of centuries together, he really puts himself in the frame. That's the next step for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And look, there's going to be a couple of spots at the top soon, or at least one. So Khawaja ain't going to last long. So that's very, Kellaway, or you have to say Kellaway's looking like a more mature game than Constas right now. So you definitely, prospects are good. Jack Clayton, that was his sixth first-class century. He's 26, but he's always looked good for Queensland. So he's someone to look out for. And McSweeney, we know, definitely someone who'll play Test cricket again. All right, just looking at the tables in the One Day Cup, Tasmania on top with 4 wins from 4 games. Queensland in second position, New South Wales third, South Australia fourth, and then WA and Victoria both struggling with just 1 win each to start the One Day Cup off this summer. And then in the Sheffield Shield, Victoria, Damian's mob are 3 from 3 wins to start things off. Queensland in second spot with 1 win. New South Wales also have 1 win. Tasmania have 1 win. That's the top 4. And then the Shield champions, South Australia, yet to win a game. WA as well on the bottom of the table, yet to win a game. So not great from them. And the big Sheffield Shield round starts next week with 14 of the 15 Ashes squad members playing in that round.
Just going to say how things change with WA. They were the vanguard of domestic cricket winners, and now they're at the bottom. So it shows you how cyclical sometimes the Shield can be.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, final break. Then we'll be coming back with 2 things. I've got a Stuart Broad clip to play from his podcast, and we've got Can't Let It Go, and I think you're going to like this one. Welcome back to the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. I am Menners. I'm with Damian Watson. I'm wearing my Cricket Unfiltered t-shirt. Don't forget, if you want one for the upcoming summer, head to the link in the episode notes. There's a couple coming that are going to be England themed. One with people that look like Ben Stokes and Baz McCullum queuing up at the unemployment office. That's coming for the summer, so get ready for that one. But speaking of poms that annoy us, I'm a sucker for punishment. I was listening to Stuart Broad and Josh Butler's podcast, For the Love of Cricket. Don't listen to it because it's recorded so softly you can hardly hear it. But I've got a clip from it and increase the volume so you can hear it. But this is his thoughts around what happened at Lord's in 2023.
No, I haven't spoken to Alex Carey about it. for those that don't know, I came out to bat a little bit red mist, and Alex Carey had come up to the stumps and collected the ball, and he maybe said something to me, maybe not. And I just sort of said, yeah, were you happy with that? That's all you're going to be remembered for, mate, something like that. And I forgot there was a stump mic and TV cameras for that period of time. So it came across, honestly, I remember like watching the replays of it, just cringing, like, oh my goodness me, that's so embarrassing. I regret it, if I'm honest. I do regret doing that.
Well, there you go. So Stuart Broad actually saying he regrets it. Yeah, I thought they were interesting comments. The fact that's what I like about Stuart Broad. Like he is big enough to go, I probably went too far. He said before, I was just trying to get under the Aussie skin. Like I hate to say it, but he's hard not to like, which is fucking hard.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I think we can all sort of relate to that, where in the heat of the moment you say something you don't mean in life manners, and I think that was the case with him there. So I think it's good. So he hasn't reached out to him directly, has he? I think, is that what he said at the start? If I recall,
yeah, he hasn't
correctly?
seen him yet. So
yeah. I think maybe they should televise. He's part of Channel 7's coverage for the summer. Maybe they reunite the two. That would get some.
I cut that bit out. Actually, he did say specifically he's doesn't want it to be in front of microphones this time if he apologizes.
Oh, right.
He did go on to say, which I didn't want to play the whole clip, but he did say something like, oh, I wonder if they regret running out Bairstow. I mean, get fucking over it. Like, it's the rules, you idiots. Like, what's going on with them? Like, it's so fucking annoying.
They wrote the rules too.
Yeah, but just like I think it's interesting that he's got that self-awareness, and the fact that he looked back at himself and went, oh, I didn't cover myself in glory there, makes me think, yeah, he's like a decent guy.
He's relatable. It's one of those larrikins that you sort of want to hate, but you can relate to them in a way. I think Warney was sort of similar Warney wasn't as outspoken towards the Poms necessarily as Broad is to Australia. But, we know Warney was outspoken with his opinions, and the English, even though the English fans gave it to him, they still loved him. And I reckon Broad has that ability now, even though he's out of the game, to have that sort of sentiment amongst Australian supporters now that he's in the media. Ian Botham sort of similar in a way. So, yeah, I think one of those classic examples, Menners, where you have a perception of someone as a player and it's different when they come into the media.
Definitely. All right, before we go to Can't Let It Go, great email from Mel Flower from Yorkshire. Thanks for sending it in. I won't read it out, but he was very disappointed with the English 50-over performance. I think Australia's bowlers were licking their lips about the prospect of bowling at this England top order, seeing the way they performed in New Zealand. But he begs the question, he asked the question, Mel, that, do I think the fact that they've sidelined their domestic 50-over competition, that it is affecting the way they play international 50-over cricket? And I would absolutely say it would be, because one thing, even though our 50-over domestic competition is small, it is a great blooding of young players coming through. So when they do get to international cricket, they've played some decent level 50-over cricket, and they at least know how to approach it.
I agree with you there, because at the end of the day, there's little intricacies, aren't there, Menners, to playing one-day cricket. You got to think of it in a different time frame. Then as a result, there's different tactics and different pace and different intensity. And I know that's increased over time, but you still got to get conditioned to it, don't you, to do it properly. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah. Some comments in the YouTube for those listening in the podcast. Clawless, who is a great listener, always comments. Thank you very much. He's not happy with me. Say WA is struggling. I'm just saying they're struggling in the fact they haven't won a game yet. Plenty of time to go. Just relax, Clawless. But they are at the bottom of the ladder. And they did finish last summer, I think, in bottom spot. Anyway, let's get to Can't Let It Go. That little bit of cricket news you just can't let go through to the keeper. I'm going to go first because I've been itching to talk about this all bloody day. Now, for those watching on YouTube, you can see this, but those listening, the West Australian, a great newspaper out in the West, put a headline with a photo of Ben Stokes arriving in Perth for the test match. And the headline was, Bazball, Bawl, and then it's England's cocky captain complainer, still smarting from Creasegate, lands in Perth early, thinking dopey Bazball can take the Ashes. Now, that is fantastic writing, fantastic journalism. Congratulations. But that's not why I'm writing why it's not leading my Can't Let It Go. I'll tell you what's leading my Can't Let It Go. And this is just an example. This is John Etheridge, who's been on the show, a writer at The Sun. I don't know if he's still writing. He quote tweeted it and wrote, "Nothing wrong with a bit of knockabout pommy bashing fun in the papers, but it needs to be clever, humorous, and based loosely on truth. This is none of these. It's just puerile." Now, there was a number of English journos, a number of English people that commented about the headline with similar tone. So I don't want to pick on John, but I'm going to pick on him and others. This is what drives me nuts about the Poms. Like, they are such fucking hypocrites. Oh, where was the fucking humor after Lords in 2023? I don't remember a lot of fun after that. And all of a sudden now we come back at you and you go, "Oh, why can't you have some fun with us?" This is why you fucking suck. It drives me nuts. The way you wag your finger at us Aussies. Fuck you. I'm going to wag a finger at you. Fuck you, right? That's what I'm going to say. No, I'm serious. Just don't laugh, Damian. Fuck these guys. This is exactly one headline, and they're like, "Ooh, why don't you have some fun with us?" Go back to Lords 2023. Where was the fun then? Where were the jokes? They weren't there. So fuck off, you hypocrites. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Go fuck themselves. Like, this is why they drive me nuts. And Damian, I need a lot of work to do, because I have said this Ashes is not going to break me. It is not going to break me. But they are fucking they're pushing me. Like, shit like this really fucking annoys me. Just fucking laugh about it then. It is funny. This is fucking funny. Like, to be honest, I don't think it's the greatest headline, but it is funny. Like, this is what the Ashes is about. But just as soon as the Poms are on the receiving end, they fucking can't stand it. I don't remember too much humor around Steve Smith 100 test match after Lords. Nothing. I saw newspapers that specifically put photos of him crying after Sandpapergate before his 100th test to rub it into him. So fuck you guys. Honestly, straight back at you. That's what I think of all of you. That's what I think of all of you. If you're such hypocrites, you come on as soon as we do one headline, "Oh, just have some fun with us. Oh, here's some fun." Go fuck yourselves.
Oh, he's building up to the Ashes, ladies and gentlemen. You can tell.
I need to breathe. All right.
The West Australian have a habit of doing those sorts of headlines. They do it a lot with the AFL as well. So
Stokes is a fucking prick. He brings it all on himself. He's a fucking prick. All right. He wagged his finger at us at Lords. "Oh, you guys don't. I'm not going to have a beer with you." They didn't have a beer with the Aussies. So spare me the fucking woe is me shit from the English.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. You got to, if you're going to give it out, you got to take it. That's the old saying, isn't it, Menace? So
yeah, what's your Can't Let It Go? Is it as strong as that one?
No, I think that's taken the cake. That was brilliant. I enjoyed that. Can't Let It Go.
Go on, yeah.
No, yeah, you go first. You're in the moment, so you might.
I was just going to say it's going to be like this: a WBBL. Can't Let It Go.
Now, I'm looking forward to. Hopefully, you cut that up, Menace, and put it on Twitter. Particularly the wagging of this finger. Can't let it go for me. Australia v India, the T20 series. We're coming up as the time of recording to the 4th of 5. Tie of 1 apiece, of course. Been entertaining. Interesting, obviously, to note that the crowds have certainly been there. They got over 80,000 at the MCG on Friday night, despite pretty ordinary weather coming into Melbourne Cup weekend. So fair chunk of them were Indian supporters, Menace. So just emphasising the growth of the Indian population, the Indian cricket-loving population around the world as well. So I think that's great for the game. Very interesting that not as many Australians have turned up. So it shows you how things have changed, maybe a consequence of the one-day internationals and T20 internationals being behind a paywall again. But it's still been an entertaining series to watch. Enjoyed the match in Hobart. Saw India win as well. And also, you mentioned the New Zealand v England series. I was watching some of the game at the Cape Tin in Wellington, Menace, and couldn't help but notice a whole heap of empty seats the New Zealanders not care as much about the cricket anymore? I would have thought, particularly for the limited overs type of games, that they'd be turning up, but doesn't seem to be the case.
Well, England have to play properly, haven't they? Been 5 for
Yeah,
60 in every game. But it's good you brought up the T20 series. I did think about putting it on the rundown, but look, I don't think there've been any standout stuff from the T20 series yet. And to me, if I'm being honest, I can't even read much into the Aussie T20 side for the World Cup. There's so many players coming in and out for Shield prep and Ashes prep and this and
Mitch
that.
Marsh has been all right.
Well, but he's going to be the captain. Tim David did well in Hobart. He's going to play. Like, there hasn't been really anything to really grab me. I mean, I did see Sean Abbott get absolutely spanked. That was one of the things that made me think maybe he's not good for baseball. But yeah, so that T20 series continues. 2 games left, one on Thursday, one on Saturday, and then the Shield starts on Monday. So that's very exciting. And then we've got the WBBL also starting next week. So much cricket in the next couple of weeks. Damian, thanks for joining me on Cricket Unfiltered. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Damian, where can the listeners catch up with you this week?
At Damo_Watts on Twitter.
And remember, listeners, there is so much information in the episode notes. Look for the T-shirts. Send me an email if you've got your thoughts on the Ashes squad. Don't forget, rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app. Share it with your mates. Huge summer of cricket. I can't wait. And we'll be back soon.